Good afternoon. It's delightful to be here with everybody to share this presentation that I conducted for Tori for Miramar Ranch Elementary. It was wonderful to have an amazing conversation with everybody. And this is the recording that I had promised I'd make for everyone and send it to you all. So I'm delighted to be here. As many of you may be aware, I am a licensed psychologist who specializes in working with gut brain circuitry. And there is just a whole lot that I do with the brain that allows me to see the impact of what's happening within our digital world, and how things are sort of progressing for us as we introduce screens and everything. So this presentation is going to be a little bit thought-provoking is what I'm hoping it'll be for you, is for it to be thought-provoking. Maybe think about the things that I speak about. Think about what you want to do within your own family system that kind of makes things um, more mindful in your family. So that's going to be a huge part of what I'll be asking everybody to be thinking about as we go through this presentation. Thank you. So, integrative psychologist, I'm a neuroscientist. I want us to be very practical, grounded. I love the idea of making mistakes and making sure that we allow there to be failure in our life, because without failure, we kind of tend not to really make a very good learning curve for ourselves. So we really need to have, and I'm a big believer that we've got too many screens. We need to, and parenting has become incredibly hard for us. We're extremely overwhelmed, very saturated with too much digital in our world. We don't have enough analog going on. And so you'll see me talk about how I want us to be able to have that. And I think it's a tragedy that what's occurred is we've given away free, unsupervised play, and we've traded in a phone-based childhood in lieu of play. And our children are really play deprived. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we kind of go along. These are my biases, and I tend to be extremely biased about free range parenting. I'm a big believer in letting kids be out there, kids play, kids get into trouble, kids sorting things out themselves, and just really allowing them to learn and grow with what goes on for them in their own lives. And I really think that to a very large extent, we've become like a culture of disrespect. So I really want us to be thinking about what are the values we're creating in our own family, and how are we creating those values in our families that allow our families to start to have um, a value system that really honors respect, dignity, ethicalness, integrity, all of those kinds of things. And I think that when we have the amount of violent video games that are integrating into our family lives, and a lot of mm, careless social media that we bring into our world, that's like changing the culture of families. And I want us to be extremely mindful and thoughtful about how we can reverse course on some of those things. And it's critical that you all know that my information is extremely research based. I'm like a geek that likes to go do all the research, dig into the research, and some of the times you might feel a little bit like you're in temple or church just because of what I'm talking about. And it's very important that we understand that harm reduction and doing like very little screen time, very little that is really not working. So I'll show some statistics and present some things to you all. I think what's happening for us is we're overprotecting in real life and underprotecting online. It's very okay for us to say no. You can say no, no, no. And I also think you can say, I'm not available. Go sort it out. Go figure it out. Let them think for themselves. You're the parent, you're in charge. I'm really going to empower my parents to have like a very strong ethic about how you are doing all the work to raise them, and you're in charge, and you can decide. You're the parent expert. None of us are the parent experts. You're the parent experts. And I think what's happening right now is tech companies are exceeding the power of parents. And we really need to remember that kids need a lot of risky play in order for them to grow. And truly, play is the work of childhood. And by giving them so many screens, we have taken play away from our kids. So we need to give them play back. And we have too many challenges. And I just always like, as you all heard from me, I want all of us to be really honest and vulnerable with each other and look at what the challenges are that we have for parenting and really think about what is it that brings you here today. And it's gonna take a village in order for us to become a more mindfully based family that is willing to take a tech exit. So you'll hear me talk a lot about tech, exiting from tech, exiting from tech. I'm not a technophobe. I embrace tech in its every step of the way. But what we really need to recognize is that there is a disservice that happened to our children with the amount of technology that entered our lives just because of the pandemic and because of all of that. And then what has happened to your parenting style? And then the other thing is to be thinking about, is it fear that seems to be driving your parenting style? And what can you try to do differently so that fear is not driving your parenting style? And a big question I'm going to ask everybody today is, are you willing to discipline someone else's child? Please become willing, because it's a village. We used to do that. We used to do that, and we are no longer doing that. And we're too afraid of like whatever the backlash might be. Heaven forbid you have some backlash on social media or whatever. But if there's a kid around you that's not behaving well, you are the adult in the room. You can say something about that and you can correct them. So parenting has become harder, and I want you all to understand that the rise of fearful parenting is one of the biggest causes for the anxiety that we're having among Gen Zs. Okay? And what has happened is that we don't have unsupervised kids in public spaces. And there's been a massive evaporation that has occurred by the year 2000 of children in playing unsupervised play, and it's critical we recognize that that's how the Gen Zs were raised. And I think it's on us now to start looking at your generation of children. This is my presentation I'm doing to parents of elementary school kids. Parents of elementary school kids, you guys are my precious group I really want to talk to right now, because there's a lot that rides on us to make changes to have us not have your children not be impacted the way the Gen Zs are right now. It's on us to make these changes. Okay? What has occurred in the last few years, last 20 years or so, is that we've been taught that the world is a dangerous place. And what's really important for all of you parents to sort of understand is children need risks, they need conflicts, they need thrills in order to test the brain, to put that brain into a discover mode versus a defend mode. We want to be like open to the idea of discovery in the world rather than, oh my God, I'm fearful, I need to defend, I need to defend, I need to defend. Okay? And I think the world is an exciting place, and there's a lot for our children to discover and experience. And let's move towards discovery mode versus fear mode. Okay? I'm going to ask you to think about, what is your parenting style? Like, what tends to be your parenting style? Are you more authoritative? Are you authoritarian? Are you permissive? Do you tend to be neglectful? And then, we've got free range parenting style. We've got conditional parents. You've got the tiger parents. We've got the helicopter parents. And Gen Zs have been raised by helicopter parents. So that's really important. And then you've got the lawnmower parents. So just kind of pay some attention to, what does your parent, you could go online and do some kind of a little quiz on your parenting style. And chances are you may fall into some of the ones that are on the right-hand side over there. And I think what's happening in our changing modern family is that we have a ton of technology. We have too many screens, too much gaming. We are not talking. We're not communicating enough with our children. We're not having conversations. We're always in a hurry. We're always doing, doing, doing. And we're overscheduling our children. We have a lot of gadgets everywhere. And we're not making enough good eye contact with with our kiddos for them to like really learn about empathy and connection and attunement and paying attention to another person's feelings. And what's huge that I find that's very disarming for me is the fact that we have the absence of a golden rule. And there have been so many presentations I've been doing in the last 2 or 3 years where I'll ask parents to raise their hands about golden rule. And many of us don't know what we're talking about when I say the golden rule. So your golden rule, in essence, is treat others the way you want to be treated. Do you please and thank you? Thank you, Mrs. Smith. When your children leave the classroom, they need to be taught when they come over to play and they've played with your kid and they're about to leave. They just don't walk out the door. They come to you and they say, thank you, Mrs. Smith. I had a really good time playing here today and I'm on my way home now. Goodbye. So we're teaching children to be communicators and we want them to treat people with respect and empathy and dignity. And those are some of the core elements of golden rule that are very absent among our children. Okay. And what's occurring now is that if our kids are not doing what all the other kids are doing, there's what we call a reduced social capital. So then that means that your kid will not be popular. Other kids may not like them as much. So there's a whole factor that goes on around a reduction in social capital that your children might have if they don't have the iPhone, if they don't have the watch, if they don't have the latest gadget. So we really need to pay attention to what's going on with that. And we've got families that are being run by spreadsheets and calendars, and there's an overemphasis on stuff. Like materialism is abounding. The more we have become technologically driven families, the more materialism is ruling, like the culture of our families. We need to be mindful of that. Some fun facts and some scary stats. So I'm giving you stats about teens because you all have children in elementary school environments, and pretty soon they're going to be in the middle school environment. And some of your kids that are in fifth grade and sixth grade are already probably demanding that they have a watch or a phone or some kind of additional technology that they are wanting. So what's happening here is truly the mental health of teens, by the way, was actually steadily improving in the late 90s up until the 2000s. 2012, 2013, the mental health falls off the cliff. What occurs? That is the great rewiring of childhood that happens between 2010 and 2015 with the introduction of the smartphones. Since 2010, we've had a 150% increase in depressive episodes in both boys and girls. And depression now is 2.5 times more prevalent since 2012. And by the way, similar changes are occurring in other countries as well. So it's not just necessarily in our country that we have this going on. So as a point of clarification for this talk, when I'm talking about a phone-based childhood, I'm talking about all interconnected devices. I'm including PS3s, Xboxes, ads on commercials that are showing up on all the platforms, YouTube, online porn sites are all part of a phone-based childhood. And these changes are occurring in other countries. So the price that we're paying, please, I want you all to be aware of this. The price we're paying with this extreme high screen usage is extreme depression, tons of anxiety, high levels of suicide, loss of empathy, and over focus on materialism. The more materialistic people are, the more anxious and depressed they're going to be. Because for them, likes on their social media end up mattering more to them. And when I'm talking about your teens, your children, your emerging middle schoolers, your teens, I'm also asking you to really take a look at your tech habits and how much are you looking at the likes you get on different posts you might make? Because we really need to take a look at our screen usage as we do some of this stuff as well. The more time that teens are going to spend on social media, the more materialistic they're going to be. And we're really developing this thing that I call digital dementia because it's just like a glazing that's coming over our kiddos. Um, so what happened is that teens and children were kept at home and they were isolated from their communities. And this whole piece around overprotection increased. And then we all started closing our garage doors, shutting ourselves in, and putting our kids in front of screens. And what's happened is that these devices are offering them more exciting rewards. The dopamine hits were stronger, and then the phone-based childhood begins, and then the brains are hijacked. So the things that happened in that 2010 to 2015 time period, what I call the great rewiring of childhood, is this is Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation. This time, over the course of that 5-year period, the social patterns changed, role models changed for these young people, their physical activity changed, their sleep patterns changed, and their emotions changed. So the daily life and social patterns of a 13-year-old with an iPhone in 2013, who could have been born in 2000, was completely different than the 13-year-old born that was born in 1994 and had flip phones in 2017. This is why when we look at millennials, they have been spared some of these brain health issues that we're seeing with the Gen Xers, I mean Gen Zs. So, what makes teens and children more vulnerable? What makes them more vulnerable is they don't have the willpower and they're at very high risk to be manipulated, right? They're naive and they're gullible and they're innocent. And so they get easily manipulated. Keep in mind also, this is coming from the neuroscientist in me, that their frontal lobe has not developed at all. The frontal lobe, oh, there's an error there. The frontal lobe begins to lay the pathway around age 11 and 12 at the beginnings of the frontal lobe. Okay. So, what the frontal lobe does is it allows us to make careful, thought out decisions, long term planning. It helps us control our impulses, delay gratification. There's a lot of things that are going on in the frontal lobe. Before the iPhones, there were limited amount of time that a child could have on a screen. The TV was stationary. It was in one room of the house. Everybody watched it together. They didn't have screens that were going into their bedrooms, and they were not carrying it everywhere with us the way our kids carry their iPads with them or their computers or things like that. And now, by 2015, more than 70% of American teens carried a touch screen around with them. So they had this thing that followed them everywhere they went. So I guess my big question for you all is going to be, how many of you have a gut sense that this tech is not necessarily good for our children? I just sort of want you to be in touch with yourself and see what it is. Like you might have given your kid a phone and then all of a sudden, you take it away from them and then you have these temper tantrums and you have this acting out behavior. So go to your intuitive sense. And how many of you are feeling overwhelmed with the tech you have around you? And how many of you have given in to gaming and computers and tablets and phones so that your kid does not feel left out? So the number one reason why a lot of parents tend to get devices for their kids is because all their friends have them and they don't want them to be feeling left out. So we'll talk about some solutions we can create to that as we kind of move forward through the talk. So I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a vision that I want to create a community with all of you. And if you're open to it, and you guys are going to have a copy of this PowerPoint, and you can always email me and reach out to me and say, Dr. K, I want to be a part of that community. I want us all to have regular contact with each other as you all work on creating a digital exit for your family. So begin to think about how we can attempt a digital exit for your family, and can we all like create a community around this? So think about that as we move through this conversation here today. So when I'm talking about devices and screens, desktops, laptops, smartphones, flip phones, tablets, Xboxes, handheld consoles, TVs to a smaller extent, and e-readers as well. Absolutely e-readers too. So let's talk a little bit about this safetyism that began, okay? So look at those. Look at the all the rules that started to show up on playgrounds. We never used to have these extreme rules about tag rules, include everyone, do this, one finger touch, no ball tag. Okay. So, what we've done is we've created a safe, non judgmental environment that's going to leave your child completely unprepared for real life. So, the safetyism is this excessive emphasis that we've created on everybody treating everybody equally and everybody nobody can hurt each other and blah 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 and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a downside to the safetyism that we have is it's safety has become a huge value, and that safety tends to trump above everything else no matter how unlikely the danger might be. It emerged in the 80s and 90s because of these several factors of that 24/7 news cycle we had that is very fear mongering. Okay. We had more of us women were going out into the workforce and our children were in daycare. And then you heard all of these stories about these pedophile rings that were happening in daycare centers. And then another big thing that has happened in the 80s and 90s that has added to this fear-based parenting is this influence of parenting experts. In the 70s, we didn't have parenting experts that ran the airwaves. And now a lot of a lot of a lot of millennial parents, so parents who are becoming first-time parents in their 30s are getting so much excessive advice from online forums about what's the best way to parent this and the best way to parent this. So, as a result, what has happened is there's a breakdown that has occurred of adult solidarity. So, like common sense parenting, most of us will have a really good common sense hunch of how we need to do things with our kids. And what we've done is we've kind of abdicated our power over to the parenting experts. So we need to kind of take that back. Okay. And as an adult solidarity, when I refer to that, what I'm really talking about, how, we all used to look after each other's kids. And so what has happened is that we've developed this culture where we're all feeling like there's no adult that can be safe, like anybody could do something to my child. And believe it or not, guys, the first time the word stranger danger ever showed up in the English language was in the early 80s. So you can see 80s, 90s, 2000s, and we've got this whole internalized message that we've all developed that says, oh, stay away from other people's children. Don't talk to them. Don't discipline them. Don't get involved because it could all come back at you somehow. So, what has happened is we've kind of become these isolated pods trying to do our own thing, which makes parenting very lonely. And then it makes us lean on all these online resources versus a collective action. And the only way to make a solid tech exit is going to be through collective action. We've got to have collective action. Okay. So, how do we become better gardeners? How do we become better gardeners versus carpenters? When we were carpenters, we were chiseling, we were chiseling, we were chiseling, but we need to become better gardeners. So the way we become better gardeners is we give our children lots of unsupervised free play. And the way we become a better gardener in the virtual world is by delaying when you give them any smart device. Now, I'm starting to make very strong statements now this year about how we should not, we must not, we may not give our children any devices, a smartphone, until second semester, senior year of high school. So if you need to give your child anything in middle school, I would suggest you don't, because the children who don't have any devices have way better interpersonal skills. They're way more interactive. They develop the soft skills of communication patterns. And if you want to get them something, I would get them like one of those Gab phones. And I'm going to give you a lot of resources of phones. We've got at least 6 or 8 companies now that are creating phones that have talk and text. If you have a teen who starts to drive and you want them to have a GPS, it can have a GPS. There should be no internet on the phone. GPS, talk and text, possibly music. Okay, that's all they need. And I think one of the ways to create a healthier childhood is to send them to technology free camps. Make sure you put insistence and demands. And I think as parents, I would love to see us take back our classrooms that were paper based classrooms. I think all of my parents tell me, all the parents I work with, that kids having the Chromebook in the classroom, I mean, their eyes are glazed over and on computers all day long. They should not be bringing any Chromebooks home. And we need to work with the teachers and making sure that they reduce the amount of tech they use in schools. I think we need to do a tech reversal because tech is not serving our kids well. And then I love the idea when your kiddos become high schoolers, have them go and do a study abroad exchange program when they're in high school, because in high school is when we want them to take more worldly risks and do different things like that. Screens are definitely polluting our childhood. Build communities. So I want you all to start building communities that are resisting screens together. So in your neighborhood, you could be two or three of you that say, we're not going to do any screens. We're going to work on our kids are not going to, when your kid comes over to my kids, to my house to play, they're not going to be getting a screen at all. They're going to skateboard, they're going to play with the ball, they're going to play basketball, they're going to play hoops, they're going to do different, they'll jump, they'll skip, they'll play with dirt, whatever we want them to do, but they're not going to have any screens when they so you create communities and really create that culture on your street where it's a culture of play. Ah, enjoy this cartoon here. Oh, my sweetheart, this is a 6-year-old. It's been so nice getting to interact with you for these past 6 years. The minute you hand them the device, you are losing your child. Here's your first device. So you're saying goodbye to your child the minute you're handing them their first device. I cannot underscore the importance of that. The extra work that's going to have to come your way once you get rid of the screens is that you're going to have to work on building your child's social life. You're going to have to do the extra work. Please start engaging in faith communities because we know that there's a lot of resiliency that gets created when we participate in our faith communities. No matter what your religious tradition is, every faith community, there's so many different faith communities we have here in San Diego. And ask on your listservs that you belong to, on your school listservs or any communities, just say, are there any families here that are interested in creating low-tech environments for our kids, specifically any families that are interested in kids being smartphone free? And then create a pledge within your group. And honestly, the reason I love talking to my elementary school parents is because I want you all to start out young and get create that community from elementary school years, because then that'll be your community you'll be able to walk through in your middle school and in your high school years. And then we can have a big party and a big celebration when the kids get their smartphones when they're second semester senior year, because then they'll have had 3 to 5 months of having had a smartphone before they go off to college and they can play with that. And there were questions that are always being asked that what if they fall behind on learning how to know how to use the tech. There is not a single child that has come my way that has fallen behind in learning how to use tech, because tech they pick up like this. They pick it up so easy. We all know that. We see that with our 5-year-olds, how easily they know how to learn it, because tech has become so user friendly that you just spend an hour with something and you're going to learn how to use it. So we're not depriving our children. If anything, we're enhancing their brain pathways when we don't give them the tech. So there are some critical neurodevelopmental windows. The brain is laying down some beautiful networks during those early elementary, middle school, and high school years. It's pruning and it's creating new connections at an extraordinary rate. The more you narrow down the pruning of their brain by giving them the device, the the more impaired you're going to be making that brain. You're making the brain impaired by giving them only one way in which they learn. So when they have play, when they're learning, when they have sports, when they have social interaction, when they have art, when they have music, all of that is building the architecture of the brain. When you give them too much tech at a very young age, all those networks get pruned away, and the child never gets an opportunity to lay down the pathways for that. So what we're doing is when we limit tech, we're setting them up for success in school, and more importantly, we're teaching them grit, delayed gratification, resilience, adversity, how to overcome adversity, which is going to build stronger neural networks for them for the rest of their lives. So you are directly responsible for what's going to be going on with your child. So when you have a child's brain that's regularly exposed to art, music, movement, coding, science, they're developing flexible attention. They're developing strong memory pathways. They're going to be emotionally balanced because they're learning healthy emotion regulation. They have better physical coordination because they're playing, they're climbing trees, breaking limbs. We have a statistic that's going on now for the last 10 to 12 years with the emergency rooms that used to get a lot of kids coming in with a broken arm, broken wrist, broken leg, whatever. They're hardly seeing those kids because the kids are not out there exploring their physical environment in a 3D world. So we really need to like get back to tons of new synapses are forming, the science, the engineering, the math, all that. And when we don't use those neural networks, there's a that pruning, it's you use it or you lose it. So the richer the stimulation we give our kiddos, the stronger the pathways are that they're developing, and that strength of those pathways creates more flexible networks, and you'll have children that have mature networks that are developing in their brains. So the kids who get that broad stimulation tend to develop what I call a stronger cognitive reserve, which functions as a protective factor against brain disorders like ADHD, depression, anxiety. And ADHD, the reason why we may think it's on the rise right now is because kids' brains are doing 30-second attention. They can only hold attention for like 30-second increments of time. So we really are doing a huge disservice. And it's really important that we all recognize that children need frequent stressors in their lives in order to become strong adults. The more we shield our children, the more we overprotect them, the more fragile they're going to get. Kids are naturally anti-fragile, and we do need to get knocked over multiple times in order for us to get strong. So think about your immune system, okay? When we get that, first episode of the flu that comes around or whatever, when the fall begins, it's that cold we get, it's the flu you get, it's that bacterial infection you get. All of those infections we get actually make our immune system stronger. In the same way, the more stressors our kids get, the stronger their brain networks form. So it is like the essence of resiliency. So I want everybody to allow their kids to experience adversity. You're not being a bad parent when you do that. If anything, you're being a parent that is developing confidence in their child. And happiness is not going to come by removing all triggers. It's going to come from them having those inevitable failures, the falls, the struggles, and then how they work through it. So we're not concerned about building their self-esteem. We want them to build a sense of self-agency where they know, oops, stuff is going to come my way, but I'm going to be able to ride through it, and I know how to create some solutions from that. So adversity seems to sow the seeds for resiliency. We try to protect our children, which is to their disadvantage. So we really need to welcome adversity. So here's what happens when you have an emotionally crippled generation is one where they doubt themselves, they tend to be very indecisive, they don't have grit. They struggle with grit. They're confused. They're unable to process feelings. They're not empathetic, and they tend to feel very powerless. and they feel helpless, and they don't look at people in the eyes. They don't have conflict resolution skills. They experience a lot of worry and rumination and fear and panic, and they're not able to come up with solutions. And when like stuff hits the ceiling, they tend to get really frozen. Whereas when you have resilient kids, they tend to have like an emotional understanding about themselves. They have an emotional awareness of their feelings. They have grit. They have perseverance. They have this sense that I can make a difference in the world. They tend to be more optimistic. They value emotional support, and they tend to know how to give emotional support. And what they tend to have is this perspective where they look at obstacles as challenges, and they find meaning in life's challenges. And they have a perspective. They can laugh at themselves, and they have a sense of purpose and meaning in the world. Don't we want to raise children that have that kind of resiliency? Correct. You want children that have that kind of resiliency. And when we overprotect and we overshield, they don't get a chance to have failures and adversity. So we've got to take time to teach empathy to our children, and we have to turn off the news because the images that they're seeing are too violent. And we just need to, like, we can talk about the events that are going on in the world without them necessarily needing to, like, get all the visual uh, assaults that they get. And a healthy mind and a healthy brain has grit, it has perseverance, it's got the ability to delay gratification. So and I'm becoming a big believer now. I'm telling my parents of teens or middle schoolers that let your child buy their smartphone when they earn their money, they get a job, they earn their money. So in high school at age 16, when they can start working, they can get a job, they save aside the $1,500 that it costs to get a smartphone, and then they can purchase that themselves. So that's that called that delayed gratification. So we really need to teach our children to have delayed gratification. Many of us come from environments where we're like, we've worked hard. We feel like, gosh, I didn't have any of that, so I want to give that to my kids. But when we operate from that place, we're being indulgent, not even over. We're being indulgent, and that indulgence doesn't allow your child to really have gratitude and appreciate what it is they have. We all know that something that you work really hard for tends to feel really valuable to you. So let your children work and earn the things that they get, and then that allows them to have a life of gratitude. I'm a big one that with elementary school kids, especially, I like my kiddos to have like a little notebook that they keep next to their bed where every night you teach them the habit of writing down 3 things that they're grateful for today. Because then again, you're creating those neural pathways of gratitude for your children. The more we feel grateful for our life, the more content we tend to be. The more content we are, the more underlying happiness we'll tend to have in our life. So contentment really brings some good happiness for us. So children grit is passion plus perseverance. And grit is the ability to delay gratification, and don't parent from fear. Cultivate altruism. Altruism in your children. Teach them how to give back. I mean, remember when they're little and they want to do the lemonade stands? Let them really earn that money, not for themselves, but when they earn, like, say, they might have earned $80 through a lemonade stand or something, ask them to take a look at some of the food banks or the different sites and see, wow, their $80 is going to be able to feed that many people that are maybe living on the street. So that is how we begin to sow the traits of altruism in our children. And elementary school kids are the best age with which we can really sow the seeds for that. And the types of risks that children need to engage in order for them to feel agency and competency: climbing trees and very high playground structures. If you look at playground structures that were in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, you will literally see like a visual representation of safetyism coming into our playground structures. So kids need heights. in order to feel like that sense of risk. They need high speed, which is that swinging, going down fast slides, the spinners that they tend to love. They need to be able to learn how to use hammers and drills and dangerous tools and knives. And that's why scouting and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, those are great things for them to do because they learn to be in danger and they learn how to feel that sense of mastery. Dangerous elements, experimenting with fire, rough and tumble play. They need like disappearing. Let them potentially get lost. Like, you shouldn't be like hovering over them. They need to like become, and if you hover over them too much, they don't get to develop that proprioception of, oh, where's mom now? Where has mom gone to? They walk away. What occurs is they walk away from you. And what's sad is that video games do not offer any of these experiences. They have all of these experiences in on the screen, and all it's doing is it's just increasing the dopamine in their brain. And that increased dopamine that they get in their brain when they excessively game, and anything beyond 6 hours a week is excessive gaming, that is priming their brains for addictions. So when you're exposing even Minecraft, when you're allowing your kids to play Minecraft for, I say no video games at all until like they're older teenagers, no video games at all. Not teaching them any skills that they're not going to learn otherwise. Um, but if they game like maybe 20 minutes one time on the weekend, if they game 20 minutes, and the reason is because they don't get a chance to get that first dopamine hit. The reason why kids want to game so much is because they're already being given that dopamine hit, which is your feel good chemical. And then that dopamine hit is given every 20, 25 minutes on the game. And that's what keeps them hooked. And that's what keeps them wanting to continue to play. And they don't want to give up that game. The initiation of a lot of dopamine production in elementary school years starts to lead to middle school years development of addictions, whether it could be vaping, it could be phone, it could be social media, it could be Snapchat, it could be a whole bunch of other things. So the way the self forms, if you think about it, is us as the family that teaches the values and ethics, right, to our children. Uh, it's not their peers should not be teaching them their values, and the self forms when we have time for reflection. When we go on a hike and we're just walking, we may not even be talking, but there's very nature. We're walking, we're sorting things out, we're trying to integrate. And we need quiet with ourselves in order to experience what I call our inner landscape. And the self forms through quiet and through creativity. And creativity, by the way, folks, creativity can only come from boredom. So when we're over nurturing our children and they have so much that they're receiving all the time, they're not getting those gaps in their theta brainwave activity. It's your theta brainwave activity. When it has that quiet time, that's when it does aha. When Einstein came up with many of his theories, it was all like, when we think about the law of gravity and Newton seeing that apple fall from the tree, he was just lying down on the grass, like gazing up at the sky. He was in that daydreamy state, and that apple falls, and then aha happens in his brain. So we want our children to learn how to have quiet and be okay with quiet, because that quiet also allows them to form stronger neural connections for concentration and focus. So the children who tend to succeed tend to have perseverance, they have curiosity, they have conscientiousness, they tend to have optimism, they have that idea of like giving back in the community, they have a lot of self-control, and not their test scores. Their test scores are not what make children successful. And you need to be in control. And I think it's very important that you put in the extra work that needs to be there in order for you to be in control. And I want you all to recognize that gaming is the gateway drug for loneliness, isolation, anxiety, depression, violence, porn and emptiness. When we look at many of our mass shooters and what their lives were like, there was a parent in the background there that allowed that kid to be completely unsupervised in gaming and excessive amounts of gaming. And the justification that the parent made to allow that child to game the way they did was, oh, at least he's got some people he's talking to when he's on his headphones. These are not in real life relationships. These are, and you don't know what the conversations are that they're having. You could hear your kid laughing or whatever, but there is a whole community that they've developed there where they're never meeting that person. They don't know who they are. You've never met the parents of that person. So I'd like to see parents get back to all that extra work that we're going to need to do in order to be present with our kiddos when we don't have the tech that's there. Okay? So play deprivation, as we've seen, lots of research that's showing is the major cause of what's causing the mental health crisis that's going on for our children. And the outdoor play, when our kids have a lot of outdoor play, it tends to produce the healthiest kids. And what happens when we have a phone-based childhood, there's that social deprivation, there's sleep deprivation, their attention is fragmented, their addiction, we're priming those brains for addictions, and phones have become experience blockers, even for us. And real life experience is truly the key to emotional maturity and emotional growth and development. And children who tend to have a lot of actual play in real life tend to have stronger dendrites in their brains. And those stronger dendrites tend to create a resilient child. And when a kid's brain has stronger dendrites, then that means that is a brain that's less prone to depression, less prone to anxiety. Please, 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 please take away their screens. So my reforms are no smartphone until 17 and a half, no social media until 17 and a half. Let's work on getting all our schools, more schools are becoming phone free now, but there's a lot of teachers that are completely freaking flexible with letting the kids have their phones. And let's give our kids a lot of unsupervised play and do not allow them to have any video games until their senior year of high school, second semester, senior year of high school. And it's very important that because our kids are having to do work on their pads or whatever they have, the device that they come home with, all communication that your kids have online has got to be subject to parental oversight. There should be zero private technology use. Any passwords are shared passwords. There's one shared password. Everybody knows what the password is, and anybody can go on the kids' devices of any sort if you have any devices. And the children should know that these are family devices. These are not your devices. Same password, screen use is public and purposeful. And when we do have screen entertainment, so we may have a television that the family watches together, that we have a family value that says that screen entertainment is very sparing and it's shared, meaning we all watch that show together and no aimless surfing it would be permitted at all. So I want you all to start learning how to connect with other parents and start forming pacts within your pods and become vulnerable with parents about what's going on for you. Make noise, make a lot of noise in the schools, and let's grab our childhood back. You know what a lot of the middle school counselors have been telling me as I've been talking to them is the schools that are making the kids put away the phones, like, and schools, schools are making them put away the phones during class time. The most important time that they need to make the phones be still put away is during recess and break. So the schools that are doing that, they're like, oh my God, they're like, it is so beautiful because our playgrounds used to be quiet because everybody was on the screens. So what's happening now is when the screens are put away, the kids are starting to play again. They're playing games. You can hear the shrieks, you can hear the screaming, you can hear the sounds of a playground that we've all grown up with, but had become really quiet. So I think we have to push the schools and we have to push the teachers and hold the teachers accountable and saying, I don't want my kid does not have a screen. We're choosing not to have a screen. We want you to make sure the kids who have the screens, they put their screens away completely for the whole school day, for the entire school day. And I think the big piece that's really missing is our kids need a lot of moral direction. And when we're raising children with good moral direction, they tend to have less anxiety. And, the social media environment for little girls right now, it's like little girls who have phones, 7, 8, 9-year-old girls are feeling like they need to be having the best makeup brands and they're trying to become social media influencers and all of these kinds of things, which is like so messed up at so many different levels. And the girls are feeling like, oh, I'm not meditating enough, I'm not doing this enough. So this is like, even when it comes to good things such as meditation, when it's coming through the social media platform, it's absolutely not healthy or good for our kids. And we as parents need to start giving them clear moral guidance, how to be good people, how to give back, how to make a difference in your family and in your community. And we can do through Girl Scouting, Boy Scouting, TVIA, your churches, your temples, your synagogues, your mandirs. We can do all of that through our religious organizations. And when we teach them a strong moral code, they tend to be happier because they know the guidelines that we are supposed to be living by, and they tend to be happier. So for me, the opposite of a distracted life is a mindfulness life, right? So when you have mindfulness, everybody reads. So many of my parents tell me that the minute they got some kind of a device for their kid, the kid stopped reading. So we want to be able to have them start to read again. We want them to develop habits that help them express that emotion of gratitude. And we know that kids who express gratitude more also tend to sleep better. Believe it or not, they tend to sleep better. Okay. So we have to teach them that skill of gratitude. They're not born with it. We need to teach it to them. And the other thing that we can do in order to increase empathy for the kids is to teach them what I call the 4 C's. These are like this is my production of the 4 C's. We tend to think, oh, the more competitive our kids are, the more successful they'll be in life. No such luck. Collaboration, learning how to work in teams, learning how to work with other people, learning how to read other people's emotions collaboration is what's going to make them more empathetic, connecting. So you connect with people versus like, oh, she has a better phone than I do. She has a better outfit than I do. Her backpack is better than mine. His soccer cleats are better than mine. That's all comparing. We personally need to move away from comparing. The more social media usage you personally will have, parent, you're more likely to be comparing when you compare versus just connecting in a real way, in an empathetic way. Yeah. And it's very important that we bring back nature into our lives again. Hiking, just kind of being like even studies have shown that even if the plants are not real plants that we have in our home, they're fake plants, just the simulation of nature tends to create better dendrites in our brain and more calm in the brain. And there is such a thing that we're noticing now with our teens, which is what we call nature deficit disorder, because they're indoors, they're huddled up, they've got their hoodies on, and they've got the screen, and they're really struggling because their brains are not growing, their brains are not thriving. So we need to get them out skateboarding, playing, breaking bones, getting hurt. Let them have fights with their friends and let them sort out their fights. You don't need to get in the middle of it. They can come back and talk to you about it. You can give them some guidance as to what they need to do, but they need to go back out there and you don't intervene. Let them go sort it out. They need more PE time. Schools in Finland and Denmark, each class is like 40 minutes of class time. And after every 40 minutes of class time, they have 20 minutes of play. 40 minutes of class time, 20 minutes of play. 40 minutes of class time, 20 minutes of play. The kids in those schools love schools, and Finnish schools Danish schools tend to be the top schools in terms of learning creativity in the world. And they have a lot, their school days are very, very short. The kids have no homework that they come home with. And they also tend to be some of the most brightest kids who have social awareness, emotional awareness, because they have a lot of play. So the gaming tends to, the biggest thing that gaming does is it increases this one region of the brain that's called the striatum. It enlarges it. And when you have an enlarged striatum, you are more likely to develop schizophrenia. You're more likely to develop addictions, vaping addictions, gaming addictions, uh, cannabis addictions, alcohol addictions, pornography addictions. So the enlargement of the striatum sets them up for OCD, severe mental health issues, and addictions. So please do not have gaming, do not expose your children to gaming at all until senior year of high school. So this is something that I do at my office, which is called neurofeedback. So I treat a lot of different brain conditions. And what I'm doing is I place sensors in different regions of the brain, and we stimulate the areas of the brain that are underdeveloped that might be causing some of these brain health issues that I may be dealing with. Could be learning issues, it could be ADD, it could be anxiety, it could be tics, it can be sleep, it can be sensory. I treat a lot of sensory processing issues. It can be a whole bunch of different things like that. So that's what I do in my clinic is I do brain training, neurofeedback. That's what makes me the neuroscientist and all that. Whew, big part, big part. Now, how are you going to do screen detox? I'm so excited for you guys to try this. And I hope that you just like dive into it. You have to be very prepared. Read the books that I'm recommending. Ideal, I want everybody to really work on doing 30 days. Don't give yourself an easy out and say, oh, we'll just do 1 day a week or we'll do 7 days or something like that. Take bite, take the big bite, like jump into it. Be prepared. Don't impulsively jump into it and be prepared. Join the parent group on www.screenstrong.com. There's only a one-time fee that gives you a ton of guidance. These are all parents that have become tech-free. This is one of my books that I have in my waiting room that I want everybody to be buying. It'll be there in my resources, but please, 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 please get this book and set a date. So I have some parents that are about to start their screen detox now on November 17th when they go away for this week, but they've been preparing for a few weeks now. So set a date, your 30-day time period. Holidays is a perfect time to do it because most of us are home, we're working less, all kinds of things. Need to get both parents on board. I cannot have one parent on board and one parent trying to do the whole thing because this is going to be a full family effort. Everybody has to come on board. Grandparents have to come on board. Uncles and aunts have to come on board. When you prep, right before you start it, when you remove all your technology from your home, when you put that in boxes and containers and you remove it from your home, it has to leave the house. It's not something you put in the garage. It's not something you hide or lock away in a lock cabinet or anything. The technology literally needs to exit physically from your home. So whether you give it to a friend and they keep it for you or whatever you do, but prep, read the book I want you to read, go on that. They have a 30-day detox plan. You'll have to be buying a lot of board games, lots of art supplies, lots of outdoor toys. Make sure there's jumpy things, games that kids can do, lots of Legos. Borrow a lot of books from the library. Just really kind of get very planned successfully so you can do it very successfully. And you have to be a team, and it's never too late. You could have a rising senior in your home right now. You have a senior who's finishing all their college applications right now. You can still do it. Okay? So it's never too late. So when you remove the screen, what I want you all to remember very, very thoroughly and carefully is the replacement is you. You're going to have to show up as a parent and you'll have to play with them until they become independent. It takes 2 or 3 weeks and they start to become independent. And then they'll love going off and they'll find their boxes to play with and all different things. The devices have been their pacifiers, right? And please, parents, I do not want you guys to apologize at all for what you'll be doing. Set your phone, and for you, you need to create a freedom basket for yourself. Turn all your notifications off. Delete your social media. As parents, you need to delete your social media apps so you're not in any of that. And then here are all of the alternatives that you have to switch the phones out. This is all in the prep period. If you have a phone, if you have an older teen who you want to change them to a phone, the Gap phone has a phone where you only have talk and text, and it has a camera on it, and it has music app. That's all. And if you want to do the watch, there's a bunch of different watches that you can do. So you've got all those resources and protect young eyes. So these are other communities. These communities, folks, these communities are blossoming like crazy right now because we're all realizing that the quality of our family life has really suffered. The quality of our family life is really suffering. So I want you to just lean into the communities that are already there and lean into support within your own communities. Find one or two families you can do it with, and you'll be very successful at it. And you want to do a lot of analog activities that come their way. So when we play board games, for example, okay, what the board games are teaching us is they're teaching us how to be patient, turn taking, critical thinking, emotion regulation. And it teaches our children how to lose gracefully and to read social cues from other people, like, ooh, look at that expression on their eyes. Huh, do they have the card that I think they have? Right? There's a lot of reading of each other that we do when we play board games. And when they're making their own tapes and making their own music, it's creativity. They're having emotional connection. There's analog storytelling. It promotes gifting and relational bonding. And what's happening when they're using an actual camera like that to take pictures, it's making them think about, gosh, I have, 24 photos on this camera of mine. Do I need to take like 5 selfies, or do I just take one and then I just enjoy the one? Because what used to happen for all of us is when we had those cameras, we'd need to wait, and there's that whole delayed gratification until the films come back in again. And when kids are reading for pleasure, it's teaching them to have an expanded imagination, attention span, empathy, their vocabulary. We all know that the vocabularies of readers are very sophisticated, right? And when they have all that outdoor play, it's teaching them independence, it's teaching them risk taking, it's teaching them amazing motor skills, and it's teaching them how to have creativity and problem solving. And in classrooms, remember when we were younger, the handwritten written notes used to be a core part of the teen communication. And there's like an anticipation, and there's an emotional expression, and there's some actual tangible pieces of paper that are there that reminds them of those relationships. And journaling, when you wrote down things in your journals. And when families watch TV together, like Full House or any of those Saturday morning cartoons that we used to watch, it was a shared family ritual. Like we'd all watch the Saturday morning cartoons together. And it would create conversation and bonding around the media that we were consuming. And when they're building crafts and they're making bracelets and Legos, it's improving their fine motor skills. It's teaching them how to be patient. It's creativity. There's just a whole lot of good stuff that's happening for them when they're making crafts. And the Rubik's cubes is teaching them how to build cognitive stamina. Like, remember, most of you have had your sons or your daughters that gets into the Rubik cubes, and then they just like don't give up on it until they get it, and then they mastered like how quickly can I do it? And there's just this whole focus. It's teaching them how to actually have good focus. And then the best part was all the props you have in your home when they create these impromptu singing. I mean, those of us that might be Taylor Swift fans, for example, saw all that singing she used to do in the living room, and our kids love to perform for us like that, and they can be so creative. But if we take all that away and we give them screen stuff, then we're taking away their creativity from them. Whew. So the big takeaway is when we have these kinds of analog activities, what it's doing is it's nurturing what we call the slow brain, the creative brain. There's an attunement, there's like creativity, there's emotional intelligence. And it teaches them how to build some deeper connections in the brain. And really, I want us to look at our moral values, and I want us to really examine what's going on with how our country has seems to have become currently. And we want people to matter, and we want people to really care again, right? And we want our kids to become smarter again. I do not want to keep listening to the excuse of the pandemic anymore now. We're past it. We need to get rid of all those screens, and we need to start getting back into an analog 3D world where our children begin to grow those dendrites and we expose them to those activities. And then I'm going to end with a really nice one that I have from Dr. Seuss, which is the 5 lessons in life. Today you are you. That is truer than true. There's no one alive who is youer than you. Why fit in when you're born to stand out? You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Today I shall behave as if this is the day I will be remembered. And here are the resources that I'd love for you to be able to purchase like right away. It's going to teach you how to break up with your phone, because you and we all know that we need to break up with phones. And then I really like this book by Richard Reeves for boys, and then the Free Range Kids. And these are just great resources for all of you to be able to start accessing. And then the website I mentioned. So I thank you. I thank you for your attention. I want all of us to know that we're partners in this delightful journey of raising human beings with grit and heart and compassion. And I want you all to know that I'm here, and I want to build that community if you're open to it. I'm here for all of you. I want us to partner with each other. Feel free to email me, reach out to me. Let's play, let's imagine, and let's create. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your patience as you heard me give you my biggest passion that I have. Thank you. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to hearing from many of you. And just keep your children close to your heart. Let them be all over you and play with you. Take care. Thank you.